There is a very nice incident which Prabhupada explains, by which we can understand the importance of today's purport. So there was a writer in Bengal, so his name was P.L. Raya. He had written one drama, written a book. So in the book, he had described about the emperor of that time, Aurangzeb. He had described about the different kinds of nefarious activities of Aurangzeb, how he killed his own brothers, how he captured his father, put him under the bars, put him in the prison, how he usurped the property. So like that, varieties of all his different kinds of nefarious activities were described in that drama. And the name of the book he had titled as Shah Jahan. So one reader who had gone through his writing, he was very surprised. Whole book is actually talking about the activities of, nefarious activities of Aurangzeb, but the title of the book is Shah Jahan. So he could not understand this, why it is like this. So he wrote back to P.L. Raya and asked him, "Sir, I am not able to understand. Your book is actually talking about the activities of Aurangzeb. I think it should have been titled as Aurangzeb. But your book is titled as Shah Jahan. How do we understand this?" So then P.L. Raya wrote back to him that actually the real hero of this book is Shah Jahan and not Aurangzeb. Because even though the book is filled with nefarious activities of Aurangzeb, it was the father who was getting all these different blames from his son. And people were talking about Shah Jahan. It was the father who was suffering all these activities done by his son. So Raya wrote back to him, actually the real hero is Shah Jahan and not Aurangzeb. So actually this is very instructive, that when the son was doing all kinds of nefarious activities, the result of that is suffered by his father. His reputation was going away. It was the father whom people were talking ill about. What kind of father he has that he has this kind of son? Isn't it? So it was the father who was bearing all the results of the activities of his nefarious son. Similarly, in today's verse, actually we can see Krishna is describing this very important understanding. Krishna is saying, Lord Vishnu is saying, Yan namani cha granhati loko bhritya kratagasi. Bhritya means servant. So if a servant has committed something wrong, which is not proper standard, either in behavior or in action, if the servant has committed something wrong, so kratagasi means it is one who has committed something wrong. Bhritya is a servant. So asadhu vadas tat kirtim. The master is actually asadhu vadam. People blame him. People talk bad about him, bad about the master. So, if the servant has done something wrong, the master is blamed for whatever the servant has actually done. Hanti tvacham ivamayaha. This is just like if the body, if there is a white spot of leprosy on any part of the body on the skin, then actually the whole skin becomes useless. Because gradually the whole skin will become filled with leprosy. So even one spot on the skin makes the whole body useless. Similarly, if the servant has committed something wrong, then the master gets the whole blame of whatever he has committed. Actually, that is very true. Prabhupada tells about another one very important incident by which we can understand the importance of how devotees have to be very, very careful. Prabhupada is saying, a Vaishnava therefore should be fully qualified. He should not, because we are all servant of our spiritual master, we are also servant of our Supreme Master Lord Krishna. Anything wrong we commit in the society is actually, the whole blame goes to the Supreme Lord. The blame goes to the spiritual master. Isn't it? So, we also need to be very, very careful. Prabhupada says in the purport, we have to be blameless. People should not be able to blame us. There is a very interesting, another incident which Prabhupada talks about. There was a person who was a thief from his childhood. So he used to steal. Whenever there used to be opportunity, he would steal something. And then he would go to his house. He was actually taken care by his aunt. So the aunt used to always encourage the son in doing whatever he was doing. So whenever he would bring something after stealing, the aunt would be very happy and she would encourage him more. Very nice, you have done good. So by this encouragement, he became a bigger and bigger thief. And so much so that he started looting and even murdering people. And the aunt would not say anything. So one fine day, he was caught by the law and he was put behind the prison. And the judge, when his case came and the judge read out the sentence that you should be hanged to death, and before we hang you to death, do you have anything, do you have any desire you want to fulfill? So he said, yes, I have a desire. He said, I want to meet my aunt. So the aunt came to meet his, that whatever she was taking care of this boy. So the aunt came to meet him. And this boy, when he was left with the aunt, he went across and bit off her ears. So the aunt was completely shocked. And she said, what are you doing? Why are you biting off my ears? So she was so much in pain. And then this boy said, my dear aunt, today, this day would not have come that I would be hanged and you would be crying here like this, if you had in the very beginning not encouraged whatever nonsense I was doing. So actually, she was doing all the kinds of, this boy was doing all the kinds of nonsense, and she was actually encouraging. And then finally, the problem actually came to that aunt. So we can see that actually, if we are committing different kinds of faulty activities in our behavior, in our activities, there are scriptures, there is spiritual master, there is the direction of the Supreme Lord. Everyone is actually guiding us. We are not like that orphan where he was misguided rather than being guided. And then finally we can see. So, if instead of hearing the advice of the spiritual master, instead of hearing the advice of the scripture of the Supreme Lord, if we hear the advice of our uncontrolled mind, our polluted intelligence, then our mind, our intelligence, and we ourselves will be in trouble, like the aunt and the boy himself. So we are actually very fortunate that we are given direction. That's why devotees, before they do anything, before they act, they have to see from the eyes of the Shastras. That is how a devotee actually acts. He does not go by his whims. The devotee does not go by his polluted intelligence. The devotee does not go by what his minds are saying, how his senses are pulling him. That is now not how a devotee acts. The devotee thoroughly acts by the scriptures. He acts by the instructions given by the spiritual master. That is how he acts. One devotee, he was taking a training session. Earlier, he used to work with somebody, so where he had seen how people were trained in psychology. So he described one incident about one police officer, how he used to hold people responsible. Sometimes, actually what happens, we blame the circumstances. No, circumstances were like that, I acted faultly. Mistake happened from me. Actually, we should feel responsible. In human life, we should be very responsible. Human life is meant for responsibility. Prabhupada explains, if a child says, I went to the fire and I put my hand, I did not know it is going to burn. So, just because of my ignorance, will it not burn? It will still burn. So, ignorance is not an excuse. You cannot say. We cannot blame circumstances. We have to become responsible. That is the meaning of being a qualified devotee. Otherwise, what is the difference between a devotee and any other people? There is no difference. They act whimsically and we also act whimsically, then what is the difference? We have to act very, very responsibly. That is very, very important. So even though it may not be a very appropriate example, it's not that devotees act like this, but it is very interesting to note how that police officer, who was a psychologist also, he had done a lot of psychology, and he used to make people understand their responsibility. So sometimes the example was given. He would give this example to the people who had committed some kind of crimes. Somebody would steal somebody from somebody's house, and then he would say what to do. The circumstances were like that. I was very poverty stricken. My parents were like this. I was forced to go and steal from somebody's house. So that means actually he is blaming the circumstances. He is not taking responsibility on himself. So he would always give an example. He would give an example like he asked one of the criminal who had gone and molested one small girl, 9-year-old girl. So he asked him, why did you do so? He said, no, what to do, the circumstances were like that. I became agitated and the girl was also there. And so I became uncontrolled and I went and did this wrong act. It's not my fault. Then the police officer said, okay, think like this. Suppose the same girl was there and at the same time there was a police officer standing there with gun in his hand. You go and enter in that room and you see that girl and you also see that police officer standing with a gun in his hand. Would you still do this? He said, I cannot even think about doing this. There is a gun. I know if I do this wrong, immediately I will be shot. So then the police officer said, that means you had a choice? You cannot say you have no choice. There is a choice available. Choice, it gets eradicated when we have no such fear. Right? When there is a fear, then we act properly. Similarly, we should have this fear. By our wrong action, my spiritual master will get blamed. By our faulty dealings, our society will get blamed. Krishna, Lord Krishna will get blamed. People will blame him. Because we are servant. We are servant of the Supreme Master. Actually, it happens so. There is another incident which happened. Of course, Prabhupada explained that sometimes devotees out of neophyte, because they are not very matured in Krishna consciousness, they may behave like this. One mother wrote a letter to Prabhupada. She wrote to him that I met some of your disciples and those disciples, they are not at all, they are too much, rude in their approach to people like us. You see? So Prabhupada wrote back that first of all, I would like to apologize on behalf of my disciples. See? You can see this? Disciples did something wrong and they are writing, that woman is writing to Prabhupada, your disciples did something like this. They behaved rudely with people like us. And then Prabhupada has to apologize on behalf of his disciple. Disciples have done wrong, but Prabhupada has to apologize. And then Prabhupada is writing, explaining to that lady that kindly excuse my neophyte disciples. But actually, it is, in one sense, it is not wrong. Prabhupada explained this very beautifully, that how I do not know the exact circumstances. Prabhupada is writing what exactly happened. But at least I can explain. They may have committed some mistake. And generally what happens, in the beginning when they have taken to Krishna consciousness, they are extra careful sometimes. Because they have taken to something which they want to protect by all means. And they are afraid that those people who have no appreciation for Krishna consciousness, in their association sometimes they may jeopardize their Krishna consciousness. So out of immaturity, they may sometimes behave not very politely, little rudely. Isn't it? It may happen. Just like sometimes we find this. Some devotee has joined Krishna consciousness and then his parents or relative comes and then he behaves little rudely with them. You get lost from here, all those things. Why? Because he has taken to Krishna consciousness and here he is seeing there are people who do not appreciate his understanding of Krishna consciousness, and it may be possible he feels that my Krishna consciousness will become harmed. So, in the beginning, he does not know exactly how to handle this situation. Isn't it? He may not know how to handle this situation because of immaturity in Krishna consciousness. Because he is very new in Krishna consciousness. So, Prabhupada explained like this. And then Prabhupada also explained to that woman, you also learn to appreciate that actually the devotees, even though they may be little impolite sometimes out of their immaturity, but they have given up everything to surrender to Lord Krishna, and that is never a mistake. They may have committed some small mistake here and there, but if you see the whole picture, that actually they have surrendered their whole life to Krishna, that is never a mistake. You see? So, Prabhupada had to write a whole big letter to explain to that lady about some faulty dealings of the devotees. So, in that sense, we should understand that actually the devotees should feel very, very responsible in their action, whatever they are doing. So, Prabhupada is pointing out here, Vaishnava therefore should be fully qualified. As stated in Bhagavatam, anyone who has become a Vaishnava has developed all good qualities of the demigods. This is what we should understand. If I am practicing Krishna consciousness, I am supposed to develop all these qualities. Unfortunately, instead of seeing that we are developing good qualities, we become very external in our approach in Krishna consciousness. We try to see and judge ourselves rather than seeing the example of great personalities like Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, who felt most humbled position. Even though they were the greatest of the scholars, greatest of the devotees, they were not puffed up. Instead of learning from these great devotees, sometimes we learn from externals of the devotees. Sometimes we think, I am so many years in Krishna consciousness, so many years in Krishna consciousness means my position should be this. I should be head of the department. If I am not advancing in Krishna consciousness. So many designations should be there. I should be recognized by others. My service should be recognized and appreciated by others. Isn't it? We think like this. Actually, that is not the real test. We should not be craving for all these things. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur calls all these different designations. When we try in the form of a devotee about all these different kinds of praise, name, fame among the devotees, appreciation, respect among the devotees, he says this is Shukerera Vishtha. It is the stool of a hog. Stool itself is abominable. Hog stool is most abominable. He is eating stool and passing stool. What kind of stool it must be, you can imagine. This is what he compares. So devotees who are running after this name, fame, designation, position, that should not be. We should be running after qualification. We should be running after, am I developing these things? Am I developing tolerance? Amanina, manadena, kirtaniya, sadahari. Am I becoming more humbler than a blade of grass? Isn't it? So, there are 26 qualities of a devotee. We should be after that. That I have been practicing for so many years. Let me see out of these 26 qualities, how many have I developed? At least one or two. These should be sadhu bhushana. These are our real ornaments. Positions, designations, recognition. These are not our real designations. That is what we should understand. Yesterday's class, Prabhupada's class, I was hearing. So wonderfully Prabhupada was explaining. You don't require a certificate Prabhu, how much have I advanced? Can you give me a certificate? No. You have done 10 years of service, 20 years of service. No certificate is required. Prabhupada says 3 things. When you eat food, you are no more hungry. Your hunger is satisfied. Your body is nourished. You feel energetic. And you feel very happy. Isn't it? You are hungry. So when you are hungry, you are not energetic, your body is very weak, you are not nourished, and you are not feeling happy. The moment you start taking food and your hunger is satisfied, you feel nourished and you feel very happy. Similarly, in Krishna consciousness, we should see. When we are advancing in Krishna consciousness, is my material hunger satisfied? Am I feeling nourished in Krishna consciousness? Am I feeling enthusiastic in Krishna consciousness? Am I feeling lively in Krishna consciousness? Am I feeling jubilant, happy, blissful in Krishna consciousness? If it is not, we are still on material platform. Something is wrong with our practice. We are not practicing properly. If we are still seeing with material eyes, if we are still comparing devotees, if we are still finding fault with the devotees, if our behavior with the devotees, dealing with the devotees is not proper, we are not advancing in Krishna consciousness. We are not seeing properly. Prabhupada is saying, devotees have to be perfect in his dealing. Perfect in his dealing with senior devotees, perfect in his dealing with peers, perfect in dealing with his juniors. Everything should be perfect. That is how we should deal. How a devotee should deal with others, all these things are explained. These are called Vaishnava etiquettes. These are our abhushan. This is what we should be wearing. So we should take instructions from the seniors. We should be friendly with our peers, and we should be very, very merciful to our juniors. Give them our association. This is how we should be. Prabhupada is saying here, the devotee's duty is to be always conscious in his dealings. We have to be very conscious in our dealing. Especially with another devotee of the Lord. See, so important. Even with outsiders, we have to be very cautious. We should not think, now I have become a devotee, I can do anything, I can condemn everybody, and I can say, you are rascal, you are nonsense. Why? Now I have become a devotee. I have got this authority, now I can chastise anyone. No. We have to be very cautious. When we are dealing with outside people, we have to be very cautious. How people are reading. Our arrogant behavior with them, immediately they will criticize Prabhupada. Immediately they will say, what nonsense devotional service they are practicing. They will criticize devotional service. They will say, better are outside people. They behave properly. They are more better than the devotees. So how much careful actually the devotees should be. That is what we should understand. And actually sometimes we see that we forget that actually devotees should be in the most humble position, and we try to become master. Prabhupada says this is the whole problem. We are advised to address others as Prabhu. Problem is we start thinking ourselves as Prabhu. The problem begins there. The moment we start thinking I am a Prabhu and others are my junior, and we start instructing in whatever way we want, that is the whole problem. So we have to be always in a servitude mood. That is what we have to, we have to cultivate. Not master's mood. That is a service taken by the spiritual master. He is called master. And even he is such a master, he always says, I am actually serving my disciples. He also never thinks he is a master. He always says, I am a servant of my disciple. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to say, Dasosmi, I am your servant. When a disciple used to pay obeisances, he used to say, Dasosmi, I am actually your servant. So this is the mood a devotee should be in. So the whole point Prabhupada is saying is that actually devotees have to be, always seeing that I am practicing devotional service, whether I am actually advancing, whether I am getting these important qualities of the suras. The 26 qualities are described for a devotee, whether I am getting all these qualities or not. This should be our check. Devotional service is not, Prabhupada says, don't take it as a dugdugi. People, dugdugi means even a child can play like this. It makes a sound. You would have seen it. It is called dugdugi. So devotional service is not dugdugi. Devotional service is a serious matter. It is a razor's edge. We have to be very careful. Little here and there, big cut. It is most sublime. It is most easy also, no doubt. But it is most sublime. So, we have to be careful, and that is the purport which Prabhupada wants to tell in today's purport. We'll stop with this. Grantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai.